But if I've got a product and I want you to buy it, I've got to figure out what you need and then customize my product to meet your needs. And that is where you're overcoming innovator's bias. And every entrepreneur needs to go through that at the beginning, or you're going to fail. Unless you just happen to come across the Facebook, next Facebook or Amazon or whatever it is. But I guarantee you, Facebook and Amazon have been listening to their customers and figuring out what it is that they want. And they've done a phenomenal job of meeting those needs. And that's why they're successful. It's not the product that makes the business.
Right.
It's the customer's needs that make the business. And there's a process you have to go through to figure that out.
Tom, good to see you. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. Thank you very much, James.
Yeah. So listen, we're going to introduce you to our listening audience, but let's do the personal stuff first. Tell us a little bit about you. Like, I don't know, where do you live?
I live in Colorado Springs. I live with my wife and 2 kids. I've got a 12-year-old and a 15-year-old, and both redheads for no apparent reason. And both of them were.
Okay. We'll just let that slide for no apparent reason. Okay.
Well, neither my wife nor I nor anybody in our family actually have red hair. So when the first one came out red, we were shocked. When the second one came out red, it was okay.
It must be a great uncle somewhere.
There was a recessive gene somewhere that has just been waiting for its moment, and it took it. So that's been a lot of fun. And both of them were born in the Middle East. I spent 10 years in the Middle East doing business and doing ministry over there. And I think that's a lot of the personal stuff.
Yeah.
I'm from Georgia originally.
Okay. Well, I'm originally from Southern California.
Okay.
And we won't need to go on that, but I am extremely familiar with Colorado Springs and Denver, Colorado. Extremely. And I checked the weather this morning, and you guys are freezing.
It is very cold outside right now. Yes, I walked my dog last night and had to wear 3 coats, I think, to make it all the way.
Today, I'm in San Antonio, Texas, and I think we're looking about mid-80s today. So wow. I'm going to take that. Well, Tom, before we dump into your organization and what it's about, you said that you spent 10 years in the Middle East in ministry and in business. Where exactly in the Middle East?
So I was in the Persian Gulf area. I was about an hour and a half outside of Dubai. Did a lot of my business in Dubai and Qatar and a number of the other Gulf states and Lebanon, some other places there. But we made our home in Oman, and that was sort of an Arab village out there. I spent 10 years learning Arabic and drinking lots of Arab coffee and hanging out with a lot of guys and in the coffee shops. And it was a really great time.
Okay, why were you there? I mean, I know business ministry, but why? Get more specific.
Well, I mean, for security reasons, I need to be a little bit vague on some of this, but
this makes the podcast even more exciting. This is top drawer confidential. All right. That's cool.
Let's be clear. This wasn't CIA or anything like that.
No, don't downplay it. I've had generals on this podcast.
There we go. Okay, well then I won't deny or affirm that CIA may have been involved.
Okay. Well, I guess what I'm getting at is what kind of business, what kind of ministry were you doing over there?
Well, as far as business goes, we actually started a number of them. One of the ones that functioned as well as any of them was I represented Owens Corning, a number of wood manufacturers doing construction products, acoustic walls and ceilings in all over the Gulf. We were in some of the biggest hospitals in Qatar. We were in several of the big airports over there, huge theater in Beirut. So got some really good success in that process. Also started a business with an Omani guy and an Emirati that we were doing atmospheric water generation. So we were bottling water that we harvested from the air, as it were. So it was a really unique thing, especially in the desert. It makes it a very interesting process. And then there's a number of others that we did. I had a graphic design business before I got there. We were looking at sea cucumbers at one point, ultimately decided that wasn't going to be as profitable as it needed to be.
All right, Tom, I got to stop you here real quick. Are you?
We did a little bit of a lot of things.
Are you like a Brainiac University guy, or are you like a Brainiac entrepreneurial guy? I mean, did you go to school? What's the deal here? How are you getting involved in all this stuff?
I guess I've been accused of being kind of smart at different points, but I don't know how well that works. I did go to Cornell. I graduated from Gordon Conwell with a master's in divinity a long time ago.
Okay.
And really didn't get into business until after that.
Okay.
But I found that I was really good at it and I really liked it. And I think part of what I like about business is not just the contribution it makes to a community, but I think especially when it comes to developing communities, which is what we're doing right now, I think it really gives that kind of ownership and that kind of dignity and self-respect. And there's a power when people are taking care of their own communities and their own lives and their own families in a way that charity kind of does the opposite. It can sort of make you feel like, oh, I'm the kind of person that needs help. And that's not a good feeling for anybody. No matter where you are in the world, nobody likes to feel poor.
Right. That's good.
So I think business helps really drive that. And that's part of why I came to what I'm doing now, is just realizing that if we're going to really change poverty, it's going to come through people being able to stand up on their own and say, this is mine. And I want to make it work.
Great. So you are seminarian turned business leader, entrepreneur, thought leader.
Mathematics before that. I was math in college.
Okay.
So it didn't make any sense at all. I don't know why I did that one, but
sociology thinker. I mean, okay, this is going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Who knows?
All right. Now, our listeners are already wondering, okay, well, what is this podcast even about? So you are the founder and the CEO of an organization called ECatalyst. And those who will see this on video can kind of see the logo in the background, in your background. So tell us, what is ECatalyst? What is it about? What are you trying to accomplish?
Sure. So what we're trying to do really is provide a completely different way of looking at development and at charity, so that what we're talking about doing is transforming communities through their entrepreneurs. And what that looks like really is saying there's nobody better to help transform a community, help create development than the people who are on the ground who need that development the most. I think when we come in from the outside, again, there's a message that goes into that says, you're the kind of people that need help, and nobody likes to feel that, and you rarely take ownership of it. There's so many wells in Africa right now. I've been all over Africa. So many wells in Africa that are broken and are sitting there. People came in very well-meaning, very, very well-intentioned, dug a well. It works for a few years and then it breaks and nobody fixes it because it's not theirs. It came in from the outside. So when we help them do it themselves, then it's theirs, and you run a business. I mean, those entrepreneurs that are out there, when you run your business, if you have to stay up till 2 a.m. to make sure something works, you're going to do it. You're going to do whatever it takes to keep things going. And that's the power of ownership and of business. So
where are you doing most of this work?
Well, we started doing some online testing in Manipur, India. We've done several cohorts in Rwanda with the Anglican Church that's out there. We probably ran about 300 entrepreneurs through that program. But we've more recently started in January of 2022, working in Ethiopia, and have a team of people who are really entrepreneurs. And with them, we've started developing a model that we're very excited about. And I think that's the model that we want to take back to Rwanda. I want to take it up into the Middle East, which is essentially a decentralized incubator and a for-profit model. So we're a 501c3 here in the U.S.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Yeah. So we're a charitable organization here, but what we're doing is we're becoming the support organization for these for-profits that are over there. And so what
Are the for-profit subsidiaries of the nonprofit, or are they
no, they're
standalone?
not. They're actually going to be locally owned, and
Okay.
we still haven't worked out the legal structure exactly how this is going to work, but we're going to take essentially a revenue share or an equity share in those businesses, but they're going to be primarily locally owned, because what we've realized is that if entrepreneurship is what empowers people to grow things in their country, why not make the engine of that growth also locally owned and locally empowered? So these businesses are essentially going to be incubators, decentralized incubators that help build cohorts all over the city, in universities and NGOs, with other private organizations, venture studios, and then helping build entrepreneurs. These cohorts are groups of entrepreneurs that are all working on their businesses, but doing it as a community. Help these businesses start growing in a way that they gain traction and revenue. And then as they do that, we move them into sort of a incubation community that really can start looking for angel investing, start really creating growth, creating jobs, creating economic development, all of those pieces, but then do all of that as a for-profit entity itself over there. And then we become the content provider and the support organization for those for-profits.
Okay. So some of that is going on right now, right?
Okay. Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So walk me through it. How does so-and-so find out about this opportunity to start a business, if I'm getting this right? How do they learn about that from you? How is that connection made, first of all?
All right. So, and just to give you a couple of names too, the primary leader in Ethiopia is a guy named Amen. He's a young guy. Amen, like amen, like how you end a prayer. So Amen is, he's turning 30 this year. He's a young guy, but he's been through the incubation system. He's an entrepreneur himself. He has grown and begun to scale a business of his own. So he really understands not just entrepreneurship, but the community of entrepreneurs that are over there.
How did Aman though learn about you?
So Amen came to me through
Amen. That's how you say Amen.
Yeah. Say okay. Amen. The first syllable is the accent.
All right. Amen.
Right.
Okay.
So Amen came to us through another organization, actually with working with SIM. If you're familiar with SIM,
I am. Yeah.
Okay. So SIM has a presence over there. They've got an organization that's doing essentially education within the church, that's helping the church understand the role of business in a Christian community. So they had connected with Amen because Amen is this amazing guy that really wanted to help build businesses, but he was more on the entrepreneurial side, and they weren't entirely sure how to get him to fit in. And when we started talking and they realized what we wanted to try to do, they were like, "You need to connect with this guy." And literally the first conversation I had with this guy, I knew he's
interesting.
This is the guy.
That can happen. Yeah.
He is sharp. He is smart. He gets it. He gets the idea as believers that we need to go into the world in such a way that it really shares the kingdom without demanding that the world respond, because the world has to do it to choose,
Yes.
And before we went over to the Middle East, we looked at Jeremiah 29, and that passage before 11, therefore I know the plans I have for you.
Yes.
That's the one that everybody loves. But before that, Jeremiah is talking to Israel, who's about to be exiled. And he says, essentially, look, you're going. Exile's coming. You do not have a choice.
Yeah.
But when you get there, be a blessing to that place, because the prosperity of their land
in spite of
your prosperity. Right. So pray for their peace, pray for the prosperity of them. Give your daughters in marriage, take daughters for your sons. You need to be a blessing to that place. And in my mind, that feels like the kind of kingdom work that we are called to do in not just here in America, but everywhere.
Tom, I'm getting getting excited about what you're talking about here. But I'm a rational, right? So okay. I'm still connecting the dots. So
gotcha.
So you correct me. where is my story right and where is it wrong? So somehow you are making connections within the Christian community in these communities, and from those communities, people learn about what you have to offer. How far am I off? Is that just part of the story? Is it kind of the main distribution channel of marketing, or what? How?
It's part of the story in the sense that, we want to be able to help everybody. Because again, this is about loving the community. Excuse me. It's about figuring out how do we really engage entrepreneurs across an area. Because again, one of the things that I found is that the Christian community in a lot of areas can be sort of bubbled. they can sort of put up the barriers, and they can.
That's pretty much our history. Yeah, that's pretty much our history.
And so when we
and for those that are listening who maybe not be Christians, we apologize for that. It's not. It's not how it's supposed to be. But remember, when humans get involved in stuff, we do a pretty good job jacking it up. But we're still trying to do the right things. Keep going, Tom.
Yeah, no, and that's part of the thing too, is that we're not just talking to Christians, and we don't want to just work with Christians, because part of it is that the Christian community needs to be able to engage the rest of the world, because there's a world out there to love, and there's a world out there to share the resources that we have, and they've got resources that we need as well. And so that's part of the idea, is that we want to be a blessing to everyone, whether they become Christians or not. Our calling is not to make people Christians. Our calling is to love people. And I think that's the primary point. We've got to get out there and really love on people. And so when we go into doing entrepreneurship, part of the advantage of working with host organizations like a university, for instance, that we can come in, and the university is then responsible to go out and find all of the entrepreneurs in their community who really want to build businesses. Or we're working with an Ethiopian, I'm going to get this wrong, Ethiopian Medical Women's Association, and they want to work with their women who are doing medical style entrepreneurship. They want to get into the medical community, and we're going to let them find, who are the entrepreneurs in your community, gather those people together, and then connect them to the other cohorts. So we're starting to create networks or ecosystems, which is what our primary rubric is.
Now I'm getting you.
Create ecosystems of connection all across the entrepreneurial community in order to create
and so the unifying the unifying motivation in these ecosystems, regardless of their stance on faith, is human need and community development, which is a righteous thing regardless of one's theological views.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Right. And we find that entrepreneurs need help. We just do.
Yeah. Am I getting ahead of each other? Am I getting ahead of your story, or?
No. This is all good stuff.
Good.
I think part of it is that, the goal, it's like there's one thing to create a few businesses, and that's a great goal. And there's a number of organizations who are out there, but part of what we're looking at is it's kind of like the Petri dish back in biology class. Remember this back in high school? That instead
that was a long time ago.
I feel you, brother. There's instead of just planting like one plant or one mushroom here, there, elsewhere, when you create a Petri dish, what you're doing is you're getting this bubbling effect where it just starts spreading.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we want to create, or facilitate. I mean, we can't, God forbid that we should be
it's
to come in and say, we're going to do it all. But we want to facilitate that kind of bubbling up of development, of ownership, of growth, of economic power and change. Because when people start owning it, other people look at them and go, wow, if they can do it, I want to do it too.
It almost inspiration. It's almost like a parallel to culture where, I don't know if you read the book Tipping Point that came out years ago. It was a business book. And what was interesting about that is they used as many negative examples of what a tipping point can be as well as positive examples. And so if you are able to create this economic engine this thirst and fun even of entrepreneurialism. It has a way of not only just lifting up an individual and a family, but a culture, a community, and a culture. Right. So now we're still kind of on how it all works. Sure. So you lend them money and they pay back the money to start these things, and if that is correct, where do you get the money from, and how does that work? Because you said you're a nonprofit stateside, right? And these are separate entities.
Yep. So we're really looking for two kinds of funding. Obviously, we need to fund the nonprofit because that's the support organization. It's kind of the backbone of a lot of the other places. But we want to do for-profit work over there, which means, yes, loans are a much better process, because what the difference between a loan and a grant is that a loan, when I'm giving you a loan, I'm giving you your future money. This is your money. It's just coming in the future. It's coming now for the future.
I still have to earn it.
You still have to earn it. You still have to figure it out. You still have to do the work to make it yours, but I'm giving it to you for now, for what you're going to need in the future. If I give you a grant, I'm giving you my money and you can spend it any way you want to. And that reduces the amount of ownership that goes into that.
Heck, that even happens in the business world. The guy starts driving around the Corvette before he's even made a dime, right, only because he's, brought in some capital.
Right.
Okay, great. Keep going.
So that's what we're going to do that with them, and we're also going to take an equity stake as part of that process. But the idea is that the money, the capital that we're going to raise for Ethiopia, for instance, they're ultimately going to start paying it back over time at a 6% interest, and that's part of the process of saying from the beginning, you need to be revenue positive. You need to be growing and building this as a business, which means then they've got to be successful in spinning off good businesses, because that's how they're going to grow. So it inspires the entire process all the way down to start really making revenue, making
the business coaching model is what you refer to as the cohorts.
So we've got sort of a 4-step model. The first one is ideation. It's just like a one-day seminar. It's the kind of thing you can go into the university and say, just bring everybody. 500 people show up, and great. We go through a little workshop and we talk about how do you turn an idea into a business idea.
And you give them examples. Yep. Okay.
Exactly. And then those that are able to do that successfully can go into the first cohort, which is what we call validation. Validation is a 10-week cohort. And this really is about finding your market segment.
Business plan. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's not the business plan totally. It's really about focusing on the idea and saying, are there people out there who care enough about what you're doing that they're going to buy what you're making?
More of a study. Okay.
Yeah. Because, the reality is that entrepreneurs, no matter where you are, our biggest problem is what we call innovator's bias. It's that idea that I love my product. I love this so much because I built it in my basement and it's just the perfect thing for me.
Yeah, I've never done that.
Right, exactly. And you build a podcast, for instance.
Right. They're going to love it. They're going to love it.
Right. If I love it, everybody else is going to love it too. And the reality is that is just not true.
Right. It doesn't hurt, but it doesn't make it true. Yeah.
Exactly. You need to love your product because otherwise you're never going to build a business around it.
Or at least the outcome or the why or something.
Exactly.
Something. Right. Okay.
But if I've got a product and I want you to buy it, I've got to figure out what you need and then customize my product to meet your needs. And that is where you're overcoming innovator's bias. And every entrepreneur needs to go through that at the beginning, or you're going to fail. Unless you just happen to come across the Facebook, next Facebook or Amazon or whatever it is. But I guarantee you Facebook and Amazon have been listening to their customers and figuring out what it is that they want. And they've done a phenomenal job of meeting those needs. And that's why they're successful. It's not the product that makes the business.
Right.
It's the customer's needs that make the business. And there's a process that you have to go through to figure that out.
So you got ideation, validation. What's next?
Validation is really getting that idea to the point where it can sell. And then the next one is commercialization. It's another 10-week seminar. This is about getting up to an angel pitch. So the space we're trying to fill is ideation to angel investing. So that next stage, if they get into there, they can have access to what we call catalytic capital. In the US, we call it the 3 F's money. That's the friends, family, and fools. It's that crazy uncle down the street that says, I believe in you, kid, and gives you $10,000 to just try something out,
This is funny. Yeah.
Okay. So that money is essential for a young entrepreneur, somebody who's trying something new, because you got to get out and experiment. Just because you've talked to a bunch of people and they say, oh yeah, that sounds like a really interesting idea, doesn't mean they're going to buy anything. And until they actually have a product put in front of them where they can buy it or not, they oftentimes don't even know if they're going to buy it.
And you said 10 weeks. So that's pretty, that's pretty substantial.
Yeah, it's a pretty substantial program.
Okay.
Part of this idea is we really want to give people a pathway towards business. Because, this is the thing. Poverty is not so much a lack of things. Everybody who's living in poverty is eating something. They're drinking something. They're drinking water. It may not be clean, but it's there. They've got the access. We can bring charity in and make poverty less painful, but it's just treating the symptoms
It's
of poverty.
temporary.
It's temporary. You put a roof over somebody's head, they're drier in their poverty.
Yeah.
You bring them food, they're less hungry in their poverty.
Yeah.
They're still poor. So the whole point is and part of the reason they don't have a way up is a thing called the missing middle, which means that in the developing world, there is a lot of micro business and there's a lot of large scale business, but there's almost nothing in the middle. And that middle class, that middle economic spectrum, that's where all the jobs are created. That's where the American dream is. It's that place where we can say, hey, I can start from nothing and move up, because there's that middle space that I can grow into and even get to be Jeff Bezos someday if I'm lucky, but I've got that dream because
Tom,
I've got a pathway up.
Have you been around enough? Has the organization been around long enough to where you're starting to see the bell-shaped curve take shape, where maybe one of your entrepreneurs is going to become one of those that creates that medium size, or even small business, depending upon how it's defined, that has really become an economic engine of not just products being sold? Because like you said, if you're missing the middle, who are you selling it to?
Right.
You're just trading. You're just trading a fish for a piece of loaf of bread, right?
Kind of, yeah. It's about creating the ecosystem, which means you have to build slowly, and you have to build multiple businesses that start interacting with each other. That's part of the process. But here, let me give you the expectation, and then I'll tell you where we are. The expectation is that, instead of accelerator model, which works at, 10 businesses, post-revenue businesses, you expect 2 to scale. You think 3 are going to break even and 5 are going to fail, but you don't know which 2. So you have to work with all of them, right?
Yeah.
We're basically backing the place up to say we're going to work with 100 at ideation and then still work towards the 2. And so that we're still working towards the few that are going to scale. But number 97 may start a little tiny thing and hire 2 people, and that's significant. That's 2 people that don't need charity anymore.
Yeah.
So what we've actually done in Ethiopia, we did started with 20 back in January. We've already got 7 businesses out of that.
Wow.
Of those, 3
that's that's an incredible percentage.
Yes, we're way ahead of what we thought we were going to get. So 7 of those, 3 of them have received loans already. 2 of those have already paid it back and are looking for angel investments now. And a couple of the others are also looking for higher levels of capital. So we're really excited. We feel like, we were talking about the 100 to 2 model. I feel like maybe we're going from 100 to 20, that this may be a lot more successful than we imagine, but we're still in the earliest stages and we're still beginning to spread out. We just signed 3 more MOUs. We've got different cohorts that are developing and we're just beginning them. So we're taking this, we're scaling it out. We're taking a look at, how is this going to grow? How is this all going to work?
Tom, before you go to step 4, let me ask you this.
Oh, yes, that's right. I only got to step 3 before.
Oh, no, I got you. I got your back, baby.
Gotcha. Thank you, Ed. Thank you, sir.
So before we go to step 4, I'm saying that out loud just so that you and I, remember that we got to go to step 4. and though you mentioned that you were 501c3 stateside, it sounds like you're also building a model that is similar to what you're expecting overseas,
Yes.
where you're having income streams that will help you in the sustainability of this nonprofit.
Absolutely. The dream is right now it's still in the dream stage.
Sure.
But we're moving in that direction because we're taking a revenue stake in the incubator model in Ethiopia. If we get a couple unicorns, we might actually get enough revenue to start supporting things here. And if we can do this in then Rwanda and Lebanon and Uganda and up into Cairo or Libya, I mean, there's so many places that we have the capacity to go to.
What does the fee structure look like?
Yeah.
What does the fee structure look like for those going through this process, and where does that funding come from?
So again, part of what we're looking for right now is some capitalization, make sure that we've got enough to get up to the first 2 years, because we're thinking that we've already got some revenue streams coming in because we've got some of these cohorts that are going to be paid and are going to be, so they'll be generating some revenue now, but the real revenue is going to come once the businesses mature and we start getting revenue shares from those businesses themselves.
Interesting. Okay.
So that's part of where we're raising capital for Ethiopia specifically. Again, we're raising charitable capital on this side. We're raising for-profit capital on that side.
Gotcha.
And what was the question? The original question. I was giving you all the context. Now I've forgotten what the question was.
Well, I was trying to figure out where, who's paying for the cohorts and where is that money coming from?
So for instance, with the university, we just had a conversation with the university 2 Fridays ago. I was actually in Ethiopia at the time. And they would really like to do this, but they're going to need to raise some capital as well. So, but they've got connections with GIZ, which is the German USAID, the British Council, MasterCard Foundation. They've got some significant avenues to raise money for this program. And so what they're going to do is we'll go with them, help raise the capital, and then they will pay us that capital in order to make all of it work.
Okay, gotcha. Are they paying you as a fee or as an equity? How does that work? I'm trying to figure that out.
So what we'll do, they will pay us as a fee. And then as the business mature, when they get to commercialization, that third step, which we haven't talked about the fourth one yet, but the third step, when they get into that step, part of the requirements of continuing is actually to give ECatalyst an equity stake in their business, and possibly, depending on what the host wants, the host might also take an equity stake at that point. So it would always be small. It would be, 5 to 7% kind of.
Sure. Okay. Almost like a franchise. Almost like a franchise,
right? And so then, as they gain revenue, the local entity gains revenue, and as they gain revenue, then we're doing the same thing. We're taking an equity share in the local entities.
Yeah, I think our listeners are going to buy in real easily to what you're trying to do, but I think explaining the how it works helps them buy in even deeper. All right, well, let's get to that fourth step. So, but let's recap: ideation, validation, commercialization, and now step 4.
And that step 4 would be incubation. So what they would need to do at the end of commercialization is get to an angel pitch. Now, actually, we're calling it a business pitch because not every business needs to go to angel investing. A lot of businesses can bootstrap. A lot of them can run off the revenue that they make. But those that need angel investing should be able to get to that point. The reason we call it a business pitch, though, is it's all of the pieces that you need before you launch. So the ideation pitch is just, why does this matter and who are the people that it matters to? But the business pitch is the finances, the P&L statements, all of the pieces that go into what you need to present to an investor or what you need to present to a larger customer that really wanted to know, how does this business work? Those that get to that kind of pitch then can move into incubation, and that becomes more of the ongoing community. We reduce the number of meetings that they're down to once a month, but then we connect them up with mentors so that they can really start working their way towards that angel investment that they've already created their pitch for. And obviously, I mean, I don't know if you've ever been an entrepreneur, but once you create your angel pitch, it isn't done. You're gonna massage it and change it like constantly as new things happen. So that process goes on, but we want the first draft at the end of commercialization. And again, this is a way that the entrepreneurs know what they're shooting for. They know why they're getting there, and it will benefit them for whatever it is that they're doing on the next stage. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. So you've created what feels like not just a step by step process, but maybe on purpose, maybe not. But it also seems to me like it's a bit of a qualifying funnel. That you have a wide opening in the beginning, and then those that are either skilled or serious, stay with the program, throughout.
Yep.
Is there any kind of a qualifier at the top of the funnel, or is it come one, come all?
At the top of the funnel in the ideation, this is why the ideation is a one-day thing. We're not gonna spend a tremendous amount of time with people who are not serious or who really haven't thought about their idea yet. But we want to get them, even them. If we can get 500 students from, seniors in a university program, all in just thinking about ideas and get them spending a afternoon doing it, that's a success, because who knows where that idea is going to germinate in a year or two after they get out, and maybe they get into a job they don't like. And now they're thinking, oh, wait a second, that idea that I had, maybe now I use that. But this way, anybody can come in, but you have to really have boiled your idea down into a business idea, at least thought through who your customers are. Now, again, that may change significantly as you start doing research, but you need to have at least thought through what your customer is, what the needs are, and why your product actually meets that need in a way that people are going to buy it before you get into that first cohort. Unless
you have a name for it, let's call the people that you know or you're networking with around the world in developing countries, ambassadors. Unless you have a name for it, let's call them ambassadors. How are you acquiring them? How is that happening? How is your network growing?
It's actually fairly remarkable. I feel like I have not actually had to find an ambassador yet. I find that people are finding us. The people who really want this kind of stuff are reaching out to us. We already have. Okay, and let me be clear too. We want to get Ethiopia up and going because we want to run through the whole process. We want to make sure the model works. We want to make sure that we can make it profitable before we move to anybody else. Now, that may take this next year to do that. We've tested all the pieces up to this, but now we need to go through the whole model and make sure that works. Once we have that model, we're really going to start looking at other places. And probably the first place we're going to go is Rwanda, because we've already done a bunch of stuff there, just not a for-profit model yet. But we've got people in Uganda. We've got people in Egypt. We've got people in Tunisia. We've got people in Burundi. All of India. I've got like 5 different people in India. I've got some people in Pakistan that I'm going to talk to next week. It's amazing how many people want this in their programs, because people on the ground there know that charity is extremely important for the earthquake in Turkey right now. We've got to get people
an acute situation.
We've got to get that to them. But if 3 years from now we're still sending that over there, we're kind of crippling the economy. There's a book called When Helping Hurts. If you guys have not read it, you need to read this. Corbin and Pickard.
Yeah, When Helping Hurts.
When Helping Hurts. It's a fantastic book, but one of the stories they tell is about 2 brothers in Rwanda who start an egg business. They buy a couple chickens, they sell some eggs, they buy a couple more chickens, they sell some more eggs, they hire a couple people, they buy some more chickens. It's this developing business, and everybody's getting excited about it until a very well-meaning, very loving church in Atlanta says, oh, these poor people in Rwanda, they don't have any protein. Let's send them eggs. So they flood the market in that community with free eggs.
Oh, boy.
Everybody in the community loves it, except for the brothers and all their employees, because now they have no way of sustaining themselves. And the church is watching all these happy Rwandan villagers excited about their eggs. And they said, man, this has been so great. Next year, let's go do it with somebody else. And so they leave that community in a year with no eggs and no egg business. And it's not that their hearts weren't right. Their hearts were great, I mean, their hearts were caring, they were loving people, but the mechanism through which they were acting on that desire was actually doing more harm than good.
That's
And
very
so
good. Very
if
good.
that church had invested in the egg business instead, they could have bought a warehouse. They could have gotten another 1,000 chickens. They could be making more eggs. They could be hiring 50, 100 more people, giving jobs, permanent jobs,
Yeah.
where you don't have to give money anymore. And the entire community would continue to have eggs as a result of that.
It feels to me that the more you expose, this kind of strategy, this kind of story, it's not really a hard sell. With that, let me ask you this. Obviously you have donors now that are on board and continue to come on board, and you have a board of directors and whatnot. And,
Yep.
and, you've got to raise your own salary so that,
Yep.
you're kind of at this point, the golden goose, that keeps the thing going. Right. I mean,
Sure.
I get it.
Yeah. Yep.
So what are you noticing? What kind of person is it that seems most interested in what you're doing stateside and are getting on board as donors?
That's a great question. I think in a lot of the donating community in America, we've been fed for the last 50 years the picture of the starving African child. And that picture drives pity, and it drives a desire to go and do short-term, very quick solutions. Vast majority of Christians in America right now, I think, are so stuck on that image that they can't think beyond that to how can we create a development in a community that's permanent rather than just feeding the child. Because that, you see the kid eating some food and it feels good.
Exactly. It's not a popular thing to say, but because I've obviously, I shouldn't say obviously, I mean, I've been to Mexico, Bolivia, I've been multiple places where when all is said and done, it probably did more good for me than it did for,
Absolutely.
Where
Absolutely.
it did, it did change my way of thinking. It did make me realize what being blessed means, physically, financially, in certain countries.
But so, I mean, to go back to your question of who's doing this, I find that business people get it more than anybody else.
Yeah.
Because business people know what it's like to start a business, and they know what it's like to own something and feel excited about what it is you're building. They get that idea. And if you can help people see that desire in a developing community, now you can start seeing why helping those brothers build the egg business makes so much more sense than flooding the place with free eggs.
Tom, do you have any churches that have linked with you and are giving to your nonprofit?
We have a couple. I would love to talk to more churches. I'd love to talk to business communities within churches. I'd love to take some of those guys over to Ethiopia with me and actually do some short-term mission trips for business people. Because I think a lot of business people, they don't want to do a short-term mission trip because they don't want to go build a church.
Right.
But I would like to take these guys over and say, hey, let's go see Lalibela, the ancient churches that were carved out of stone. Let's go see a couple other things, but then let's come back into Addis and let's do workshops for these entrepreneurs, because you guys have knowledge that they need and they know it. You know it. Let's just get you in the room with them and let's talk about marketing, or HR or whatever it is, leadership. What are the lessons that you've learned in the process of being in business that you can transfer to somebody who's just starting out, wants to change their community and be a blessing to them in a way that can really be transformative, not just because it brought something nice, but because you as a person made a connection with somebody there who needed the skills and the processes that you know.
Well, yeah, and with the right worldview, business is God's business, and that sometimes we need to teach, just on that. What is your website? What's your URL?
My URL is www.ecatalyst.org. That's E as in echo or ecosystem. Catalyst, CATALYST.org. And you can make donations there. You You can also contact me or contact the organization through that. I'd love to talk to anybody who wanted to take a trip to Ethiopia or to Rwanda and see what's going on there, to be a part of this process. I think it would just be phenomenal to see who comes out of your community that would really like to get engaged and have an impact in the developing world.
Well, Tom, you gave the answer that I was kind of imagining, that I think it would really get business people and entrepreneurs to sit up and go, wait a second, this is a whole new way of missions that I've never thought about. I didn't know I could think about it that way, because it's always been this model, that model. And Tom, I have really enjoyed this. I don't think this should be the last time we get on a podcast together. I think I'd like to.
That.
Yeah, I would like to see the Today Count show follow your progress.
Absolutely.
So ECatalyst.org is really the next step for you all to check out what Tom is doing, what he's trying to do. Maybe I would imagine that your website will eventually evolve into a place where it not just gives the concepts, but kind of shows the progress and maybe some stories and whatnot that will be happening that can report
Absolutely.
back.
You can. There's some videos there that show a little bit about what we're doing. I'd really encourage people to check out the video on the missing middle on the About page. And then there's also some stories of some of the entrepreneurs that we're working with, and you can see some of their early pitches as well too. So just some fun stuff to play with, both in Rwanda and in Ethiopia. But again, our focus right now is building this thing in Ethiopia. And that's really, if we can get that model going, I feel like we can start going to other parts of the world and start solving poverty.
Tom Carlson is the founder and CEO of ECatalyst. I don't think this will be the last time we talk. Thanks, Tom, for your time today.
Thank you so much, Jim. I really appreciate it.